This last section of chapter 3 looks at a set of different sensory systems known collectively as the skin senses. And can you guess where the receptors for the skin senses are located? I got it! I bet you can. It is in the skin. And we have 3 layers of skin that are all depicted in this image here. You have the epidermis, which is the top layer. That's the layer that you can see. Epi means above. Okay. Right below that is the dermis. So epidermis, above the dermis. And then the hypodermis, like a hypodermic needle. What do you think hypo stands for, or what translates to? Hypo means under. So under or below the dermis. So that's the lowest level of your skin. And we have more than just a sense of touch. We have actually special receptors for a variety of different types of touch. There's touch, which I guess you could describe as pressure. That's usually what we are referring to when we say the sense of touch. But another skin sense is also your ability to tell hot and cold apart. So temperature. And then, of course, there is pain. So one of the things that's interesting about the sense of touch is the study of being tickled. This is, believe it or not, hasn't been a ton of research on this. Well, maybe you can believe it because it's kind of a funny topic. But being tickled is a unique experience. The response to being tickled is physical, but it's also psychological. Think about like being tickled. It's not just that physical sensation. It's a mental thing too. And it's possible that our response that we have to a joke, to humor, and tickling may be related in some way. One of the questions that psychologists have tried to answer, and there actually have been studies done on this, and that is, believe it or not, why can't you tickle yourself? Why can't you tickle yourself? Well, there's 2 main reasons. In order to be tickled, this kind of sounds ridiculous. You need to have intimacy with the tickler. That means you have to know them so that you know them closely, and if they were to touch you, it wouldn't freak you out. If a stranger imagine a stranger on an elevator tries to tickle you, that is going to be really weird and inappropriate. But if, a good friend or a parent tickles their baby, that is what we consider intimacy. You're basically allowing that person to do such a thing. Now, you have intimacy by definition with yourself because you are the tickler, right? You couldn't be any closer to the tickler than if you are the tickler. But there's something missing that is really impossible to do if you're trying to tickle yourself, and that's the element of surprise. In order to tickle someone, it has to be a bit of a surprise. So that's why we can't tickle ourselves. Now, looking at pain, there's probably more research on pain than on the sense of temperature, probably for good reason, because pain can be such a debilitating symptom. So what is pain? Pain receptors that are in our skin, they are basically free nerve endings. They are the ends of the so-called afferent neurons. Those are the neurons that go to the brain. They go to, and from your skin, they go to the spinal cord and then up to the brain. And your body parts have different sensitivities. We'll take a look at that on the next slide. Pain activates your autonomic nervous system. So that's that nervous system that might activate the fight or flight response. And once again, just like with with tickling, the perception of pain is also both physical and psychological. And there are cultural expectations to the experience of pain, when it's okay to feel pain, when it isn't. And likewise, there are gender expectations. Who is allowed to feel pain? Who must pretend that they don't have any pain? You know, football players have to act like it doesn't hurt. You know, that whole thing. So that's what we mean by expectations of pain. Now, getting back to the different body parts and their sensitivities. So, as you can see on the graph, the red bars or the red columns, those are for pain, and the shorter the bar, the shorter the column, the more painful that area is. And so the most sensitive areas are the fingertips and palm area, followed by the forehead, based on the research that has been done in those areas. You may have seen at the doctor's office, they have these pain scales, because pain is such a difficult thing to convey to another person. And there are all different levels of pain. There's that slight pain that we get, if you bump your knee as you're on your desk as you're getting up to leave. But then there's whole other levels of pain, and scales like this with these faces can really help to show your doctor closer to what you're actually feeling. There's another area of research that has focused on those who have a missing limb, whether they've had an amputation or an injury where they lost their leg. Well, it turns out people who are missing, say, for example, like in this picture, who have a leg amputated and don't have a foot anymore, there's something called phantom limb pain. The phantom limb is the part that's no longer there, and it can hurt just as much as a real body part hurting. It's thought to originate in the spinal cord and in the brain, and it could be from confusing signals that the brain gets. When you lose a body part that you used to have, the brain still has basically like a map in the brain. Remember we saw in your primary somatosensory area, you have a area in your brain mapped out for your different body parts. Well, when it comes to amputations and other injuries where someone loses a limb, the brain is still there. So it still exists as far as the brain is concerned, at least for the time being. And it could be years. Usually the part of the limb that hurts is the part that would be the furthest away from your body. So if you had an arm amputation, you'd feel pain in your hand that's not there. If you had an amputated leg, it would be foot pain. And this pain can be in any number of different ways. It can be a stabbing pain. It can be a throbbing pain. It can be a dull ache. There's as many different types of pain as there are for real, actual limb pain. So how can it be treated? Well, there's an incredibly ingenious way that is very low tech. It's called mirror therapy. And it was developed by a brilliant psychologist. I think he's at Stanford or UCal Berkeley. I know he's located on the West Coast. V.S. Ramachandran. He's a British Indian neuropsychologist who has done a lot of research in phantom limb. And in this picture here, you see this guy who he would be missing his right hand. So there's a mirror right here, and this is a box that he places the good hand into here, and in the other side he puts the amputated arm. When he looks in this mirror, it looks as though he has a hand. And that is enough. You do that for a while, it starts to trick your brain. The brain will see that as another hand, and for some really amazing reason, that really can lessen the pain for lots of phantom limb sufferers. And then finally, the last two types of skin or body senses, I guess you could call them, have to do with our balance. One of them is called kinesthesis. Kinesthesis is a big mouthful, and it basically means your awareness of your bodily movements, your muscles, your tendons, your joints, all that stuff. And it's based on so-called proprioceptive cues. These are cues or signals that get produced by different parts of our body, whether it's the muscles in your hands and legs and arms, your neck, or it could be in the ear. The inner ear has fluid-filled canals that can tell you the position of your head and stuff. So that's kinesthesis. There's also the so-called vestibular sense, and then this tells you, your vestibular sense tells you the sense of your bodily orientation. So where you are, like if you close your eyes, you still know where the different parts of your body are, and you can still maintain balance even with your eyes closed. And this helps to maintain your balance. That's the vestibular sense. And you're getting information about where your head is, where your body is, and the structures that control this would be located in your inner ear. And that is it for the skin senses notes. As always, let me know if any of this raises any questions, and thank you for checking it out.